Well, it's that time of week. We get to do Cold Stove Talk with Ryan Divish, brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941. Located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District, Chalet Bowl has been family-owned and operated for over 40 years, delivering top-notch customer service, unique 12-lane experience. Check out chaletbowl.com. Book your next reservation, experience the best in local fun. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Seattle Times, Ryan Divish joins us. The Ryan Divish Show every Wednesday from the Limback Lumber Studios. Looks like you're once again in a classroom substitute teaching.
Yeah, I'm teaching for business law today, or no, business classes. I don't know what. So this is my buddy Todd, who I used to play fast pitch with. I don't even know what he teaches. Like, I didn't even look. I mean, I know he teaches like business, and so It's like there was one was business law, and then I think he had like I don't know. There's a personal finance class which I should probably take. I mean,
sure.
Like, let's be really honest here. Like, the reason I sub isn't because like it's out of the goodness of my own heart and like I want to be like a good person and help out my alma mater. It's because I have a bit of a gambling problem, and and other things. And so it's like I gotta accrue money for in the off season, and I haven't been able to start charging for hitting lessons and pitching lessons yet. So so I do this.
That's good. It's good for you. You know what?
I'd like to do some daytime bartending, but I just haven't been able to get that going.
Well, just try it out. All right, we're going to get into the third base position on the cold stove. We every week. Throughout the offseason, Divish and I will go over a different storyline. And he wrote about a perfect storyline this week, the third base position. What are they going to do? What's the future there? What options do they have? Before we get to that, though, I want to get your reaction on Cal Raleigh not winning the Silver Slugger Award. Instead, it goes to Salvador Perez.
I heard about this before it was announced because they've kind of let him know early. And in a way, I wasn't surprised because it's kind of like, the voting is done by, I think, players, coaches, or whatever. So it's name recognition value. And I don't know how much time they actually put into it. I don't know how much Louisville Slugger, puts into it a little bit more. Like with the Rawlings and the Gold Gloves, they have some sabermetric numbers and a group that helps kind of oversee it a little bit more. But I think I posted on Twitter, Cal caught 130 played 130 games at catcher. Salvi played 90.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's where it stops, and that's what bothers me about this. Yeah. And I've seen people try to argue against it. It's an award for a hitting catcher. He played 41 more games at catcher. Like that, I just don't understand. I mean, listen, Salvador Perez offensively. I mean, there's plenty of numbers that he has better, obviously, than Cal Raleigh. But I mean, Divish the award is given out to the best hitting catcher, is it not?
Yeah, that's the way I interpret it. I mean, they have a DH award. They just, to me, and like, look, I know it's a gray area, but I think the fact that Cal caught 130 games and has, I don't know, I posted on Twitter 500 some plate appearances as a catcher.
Yeah,
I think that has to be taken into it and rewarded, not just like overlooked and I mean, as I put, like, no position taxes you more mentally and physically than catcher. So Cal caught more games and he still put up huge numbers. I mean, I think that's, I honestly, I would have, if I had to vote it in order, it would have been Cal and then Shea Langoliers, then maybe Salvi.
Yeah, I think we for that award specifically, I think we really undervalue what it means to catch. And the fact is, I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, there are going to be numbers in Perez's favor. Obviously, batting average, the number of strikeouts are going to be in his favor. But 545 plate appearances, 131 games caught versus someone who caught 90 games and had 363 plate appearances.
Yeah. It's not even. But I wasn't surprised because that's how the award works. Look, I mean, the whole awards thing is kind of sometimes a sham.
Yeah.
Just because, like, when you have, like, it's so funny. And I was like, oh, players should vote on it. I've seen the players do it. They do a half-assed job because usually they're asking the clubhouse guy. They're asking me. They're asking their neighbor. Like, because a lot of these guys don't really follow baseball that closely. Some guys are real baseball junkies and know all the numbers, and other guys aren't. It's the Richie Sexton. You think remember how much Richie Sexton hated baseball?
Yeah.
But he
Yeah, I
played
sure
it because
do.
he's good at it. It's
Yeah.
like, and like even like somebody like Haniger, you got a bunch of kids and stuff. You're at home. You're not watching baseball games. You're with your kids. So it's I don't put a lot of stock in that sometimes. I think
I'm not gonna die on the hill for this and like start calling for names and people's heads. I just think that I agree with you. I think he won that award in name recognition only. And that's why he took home the award. It's a great point. All right, you covered it in your offseason kind of recap or look at positions on the Mariners roster. You looked at third base, and we were going to look at third base too. So this is perfect timing. They obviously missed out on this. It did not work out, this platoon system. As you wrote, the platoon system delivered a .213 batting average, an on base of .301. 12 home runs and 40 RBIs. I mean, that's embarrassingly bad for third base. Where do they go from here, and how do they solve it? And you tell me how Josh Rojas fits in now to their future plans at third base.
Well, I think they're going to have to go the trade route unless they want to go with a platoon again. I mean, I didn't put the list of players in there, and probably because I overwrote the whole part about Suarez and just kind of the flawed thinking and all of it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm sure there are certain members of the front office that didn't enjoy it. But so like how they go, Adam Jude talked to Jerry the other day, and I had talked to Hollander a while back. But like basically the thinking is they have needs at first base, second base, and third base. Like they need somebody to go with Luke Raley at first base. Second base, obviously they don't know. Third base, they had the platoon. Luis Urias is down the road, thankfully. So, like they're going to have to fill. They have to add to that, but I think they're realistic to know they can't get three like what they would call impact guys there. They're hoping to at least just get two. So it's kind of like if then or. It's like maybe like there's a lot of right-handed hitting first baseman out there. Maybe they can go that route, and then. Do they get a second baseman or a third baseman? However they do it, I think that Josh Rojas will be a part of a platoon at either second base or third base. He's a nice utility infielder, backup infielder, plays solid defense, and he's he's a good bench player, but he's not like an everyday guy. We saw that kind of take place. Dylan Moore, so like I think they're perfectly comfortable like putting a platoon together of Dylan Moore and Josh Rojas, particularly like probably at second base where you're not expecting power. But if they had to do it at third base because they got like a premium second baseman or somebody there, they'd do that. So I think that's kind of what they're going to try and do is like, yeah, Josh Rojas will be on the team. He's going to make a little bit of money in arbitration, but like,
what's the number again?
I think like 3.5, 4, which is perfectly fine for that. They're paying Dylan Moore about 3. That's what you pay for a backup kind of utility infielder anymore in the open market. So I think Josh Rojas is a part of this infield on a platoon basis. It's just where he plays at. Do they go get a third baseman? Do they go get a second baseman? And, how does he fit? Maybe they get all 3. But I think that's kind of where they're at right now, at least from what we've been told. And we've discussed the money aspect. They don't have a ton of money to go out and get a whole bunch of guys.
Right.
So, and it's like, Alex Bregman not coming here. He's just not. And
what about Alec Bohm? Would that be something? That his name has popped up now, saying the Phillies would be open to trading him. Your buddy Jeff Passett had mentioned that. Would he be a fit, and what would it cost?
Yeah, obviously, I think he'd be a fit. I think with Bohm, I don't necessarily believe you have to give up one of the big starters. I think you can put together a prospect package. He is younger. He's coming off a down year. And to the point where he was really largely not a part of their postseason. He's got real good power. He was, like, you start to wonder though. Hey, like, he didn't produce in a great hitter's park in a lineup that offered you a ton of protection. And a lot of people think it's just a change of scenery. Like, he needs to get out of there and kind of refine himself. Maybe that's
there's some maturity questions, correct?
Yeah. He likes being Alec Bohm more the baseball player, it's not like he's at the point where he's wearing his jersey out to the bars or something, but like I think he likes, just maybe the work, the preparation isn't exactly where they think it should be. On a team with a bunch of psychos like Bryce Miller and Trey Turner, just doesn't work. But then you have to question that, though. It's like if you go out and get this guy, I mean, we've already discussed kind of their lack of leadership in the Mariners, established leadership. Who does it? Who keeps this guy in line? I think one thing is if you get traded, you start to realize, okay, maybe I'm not untouchable. Maybe, maybe some of the stuff I'm doing doesn't translate, and or that, I could get moved. So I think that could be a wake-up call for him, but that's something you have to recognize or at least scout. And I think the Mariners hurt themselves with that in the past, the Jesse Winkers and stuff who didn't buy into the work aspect that they preach in Seattle and then had to get rid of them. I mean, you're giving up players to do that. So you better be certain that like Alec Bohm is talented enough and motivated enough to come in and help you in that regard.
And you don't think it cost them? It doesn't cost them one of their pitchers, the young guys.
I wouldn't think so. I think that but it'll cost a top prospect because I think maybe that's where Philly's at. They have a pretty good pitching staff if you look at it, but what they've done too is like they've given up a lot of their younger prospects. Maybe it's going to cost you one, that way, or maybe it does cost you. I'm saying, oh God, maybe you put together the package, but again, you're buying low on Alec Bohm. You're not buying him when he's at his highest point. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where they're at. I mean, we've talked about it before. The Twins have a lot of infielders. There's the Reds. There's guys out there, but because I'm looking at the free agent market, and it's just not great. Like
it's not good at all.
No,
especially for what they want and for the positions they want. It's not good.
No, exactly, and that's kind of where they're at. I mean, like it's just an older group of dudes, and do you really want those guys? JD Davis, Moncada, who, he's a freaking washout. Brian Anderson, Jace Peterson. I mean, that's a bad group.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and the internal options for them are what? I mean, I know that it's not there this year. What are their internal options like in their system at third base?
Well, I mean, Ben Williamson is a guy they drafted in the second round a couple years ago, and he is considered to be one of the best defensive third basemen in all of baseball and all the minor leagues. He got dinged up a little bit in the 2023 season after drafted, so he limited him. He came back, did a lot of work. I mean, he got up to AA this year. Right. I love the kid. I mean, defensively, he's great. He runs, he plays his ass off, and a lot of people wondered about the bat, and it was better than I thought. He hit in AA this year. He'll be an invite to big league spring training is my guess. And I think he'll start the season at AA as a third baseman every day and be in AAA by the end of the season if he plays well. I mean, like, could he do it? Because he's older. He's he's a college kid, maybe. But, like, they don't have a guy like you're saying, okay, this guy's going to come out and take a job. I mean, we'll see a bunch of retreads on minor league signs. But, yeah, I'm looking at it. The one thing is you could do, I guess, and he's been resistant to it, but a lot of people feel that Willy Adames is a third baseman, not a shortstop anymore. Right. He's a free agent. He got the qualifying offer, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he still wants to sign as a shortstop.
Did he not just recently say, or I don't know, am I just making this up? Did he not recently say that he'd be willing to move spots?
I think so. I mean, they'll say that publicly. Now, privately, they might not say the same thing. That's where you get at. It's true that stuff happens. Like, oh yeah, I'll say it publicly. Yeah. I mean, even JP, kind of said it publicly, but would prefer to be shortstop. So yeah, Abraham Taro is a free agent this year.
Hey, let's bring him back.
But
come on, let's bring back the bull.
But see, that's the problem, and I wrote about this a little bit. And who knows if he would have had the same numbers or whatever, but like they had an opportunity, they had an opening. Matt Chapman was available and willing to sign on a short-term deal. If Matt Chapman has the year he had, San Francisco is not a hitter's park. So if Matt Chapman has the year he had, playing in San Francisco for the Seattle Mariners. One, they make the postseason, but maybe then he wants to sign that extension. I mean, the Mariners offered 4 players to the A's for Matt Chapman before he was traded to the Blue Jays and were rebuffed. So, they put themselves in this position by not adding over the last couple of years, by kind of piecing it together because they haven't had payroll. I mean, that's what you're running into. You can map out the free agent classes as they go. I mean, like this is a problem. Like looking for a third baseman now is a problem based on not adding last year or the year before.
Right.
I mean, it's not like they didn't know Suarez. Suarez was getting older and he was going to run into this option year. I mean, he played so well that the Diamondbacks didn't take it. I think a lot of people never figured that option year would be picked up, but it was. So this is where they're at because of their lack of, I wouldn't say foresight, but the lack of activity to really piece something together.
Your buddy, your colleague, Daniel Kramer had a story up there, kind of a mailbag from MLB.com, and just kind of recapping what Mariners GM Justin Hollander had talked about at the meetings here, a week or so ago, and said, listen, interest is high in bringing Justin Turner back. Does you feel that way with Turner as well, and do you think that comes to fruition, that Turner comes back?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's interest is high just because they felt like everything he brought to the team on and off the field was so important and vital last year, and so many of the guys in the clubhouse wanted him back, and he still puts together a professional at bat. I think the big problem is like you're carrying the double Mitchwich that you're largely going to use at DH, where you'd like to be able to have Turner at DH some, and I think that's a problem. And I think that honestly, they could go out and sign Justin Turner and still not have any resolution to the situation with Garver and Haniger. I mean, and there's a chance that they carry them both going into the season. I think a lot of people think, oh, no, they're not. Well, if the option's not there to really move them, then they're going to carry them. So, I mean, it's possible. I think if I'm Justin Turner, though, I may be waiting to see what the Dodgers do or the Padres or somebody like that too, because he lives in Southern California and probably wants to stay as close to home.
But here's my thing: if you are forced to bring, and really there are no options to get rid of the two Mitches. What do you call them again?
They had that sandwich this year, the double Mitchwich. Yeah.
The double Mitchwich. And Hollander said, up at MLB.com, he said, we anticipate both those guys bouncing back and being better than they were this year. I mean, that's always my favorite. We're hoping, we're crossing their fingers, they're both going to be back. But if they both are back, how can you afford to add Justin Turner? Like I don't.
I mean,
how can
you're
you
probably only going to pay him $7 or $8 million a year, though.
Yeah, but at that point with those two guys, but at that point when you have, I guess here, don't you put a first baseman glove in both those guys' hands? Listen, we're going to carry you. You got to play first base.
Well, Garver's actually played first base some.
What about Mitch? I know Mitch hasn't, but I mean, doesn't he get a first baseman glove?
Maybe. I mean, like they could just use him as the DH. You're going to have a DH out there every day. You could use one of them as the DH. I mean,
sure.
If you really wanted to move one of them, I think it's probably easier to move Garver just because of the catching component,
right?
And that he did it. But
at that price tag,
well, you'll eat some of the money, but you probably you're probably trading him for salary. You're trading for a low level prospect and salary relief. Is what you're doing, or picking up maybe it's a contract on a reliever that somebody doesn't want. That's something you could do too. Whether it's like, look at Tampa. Tampa's got some really good relievers that are starting to get expensive and they need catching. Yeah. Maybe you do that. I mean, that's kind of how you have to work it. But I think the catching component, even though he's not like the greatest receiver in the world, and the idea that it can lead to injury for him is still valuable because there's such a lack of catching. I mean, look at Travis d'Arnaud, just got like 2-year contract from the Angels. I mean, like, you can get something for catching. It's kind of that's why I'm surprised that they didn't trade Harry Ford last year, because like I felt like there's so many teams that need catching, and here's a guy that is athletic, is can has a good on base percentage. Maybe doesn't have the power, but he's getting closer and closer to being able to help a team at the big league level, at least from a defensive standpoint. And I feel like that has value, but maybe they're holding out for more.
As a market, have you heard anything on what they may or may not do with Luis Castillo?
I mean, they're going to listen. It's sit there and say plan Z to trade any of them. I think the plan Z not to trade the starters is really the ones that are cheaper than Luis Castillo. Like if the Dodgers or Yankees get desperate, or the Red Sox, and say, hey, look, we'll take we want to trade for Luis Castillo. We would like the other guys, but we'll trade for Luis Castillo. Here's what we got. I mean, the one thing is you're taking $20 million off the book, so then you can go out and maybe get some guys, and especially if you believe that at this point, Emerson Hancock is a viable number 5 starter. I think people get so oh, he's not as good as the other ones. Yeah, but nobody has a staff as good as this. So their number 5 starters look a lot more like a normal staff looks a lot more like Emerson Hancock at the number 5 than Brian Wu. So you could do it that way. You could say, okay, well, we'll move Luis, get some salary relief, get something for him, and then move Hancock there. Plus, you have Brandon Garcia and Logan Evans still in the minor leagues, both of whom they feel like could help them next year. So you do have that depth that maybe, and if you believe that you're good at this, again, they have starting pitching. Then when they draft, they seem to find a way. So it's I think if you really truly believe you can draft, develop, find starting pitching to help you, then you have to use that depth sometimes to trade to get stuff that you can't always access or develop yourself.
Hey, last thing for you. Do we have any more clarity on Wilson's contract and DePoto's contract?
No, not. I would assume for Dan, it's pretty standard, 2 to 3 years. I think it's 3 years. They've been pretty standard on their managers' contracts. So, and it's a different contract than his player development contract that he was on. As far as DePoto, I have gotten no clarity on how many years it is. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2. I don't think it's 5. But I think that, that's they're in wait and see mode with Jerry. If they don't make the playoffs this year, it's just I can't think of too many organizations that would go with a top decision maker that goes this long and has been given this much runway. And maybe that stems from not being creative enough, or understanding what could happen, or maybe it's because they don't want to pay. It's like everybody sits there and says, "I'll just go out and get Theo Epstein." I can't see the Mariners paying a GM $8 million or a president of $8 or $9 million. I just
don't see it.
It's okay to pay somebody not to play for them, but just don't see it.
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't think they would do that. And wait and see if they can get through this year and see if he can prove it to them. But I'd be odd that it'd be 1 year that he would come back for, that they would give him multiple years, but we'll see. All right, it was a short, abbreviated cold stove here with Ryan Divish. Get back to your substitute teaching. Divish's weekly visit brought to you by Chalet Bowl. Go book your next reservation at chaletbowl.com. Check out the episode on YouTube. When you're there, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, check it out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and of course up at pucksports.com. All right, don't let the kids beat you up too much, and we'll talk to you next week, Div.
Yeah, we'll discuss the Missoula trip when we bring Adam. But you have an invite next year. You have a standing invite.
Perfect. All right, see you, Divish. We'll talk to you next week.